the question today is, will there be a World War III? Okay, um, and if there is a World War III, will it be the last war, or will there be a fourth World War, the fifth World War, or does it end there if there is a World War III? Okay? I mean, will the military throw the bombs and then stop, sign a treaty, and continue, or will that be it for all of humanity? So keep that in mind. That's going to be like the question in the back of my mind today. Okay, and we start here with a little news that came out. Russia test fires new hypersonic missile from submarine. And it says the Zircon would be capable of flying at 9 times the speed of sound and have a range of 1,000 kilometers. Okay, that's quite a bit, quite a missile you've got there, Ruskies. And I think pretty much all sides have these kinds of weapons. And the question is, if they start using these weapons, especially with nukes, inside them, will anyone survive? Okay, so keep that in mind today. It's a question you have to ponder. Again, if there is a third world war, assuming, will anyone survive? Will they continue until it's all gone, or will they manage to stop just before we screw up the whole planet? And even if they stop, okay, even if they stop, before they destroy the entire planet, can we recover from such a major conflagration? We have this big fight between the East and West primarily. The economies of the big countries will be, or the big empires, if you want to call them like that, will be shattered. So I don't know if we even can recover, even if we stop before this complete destruction. Okay. Anyways, along the same lines, here we have another piece of information. Some news, some headlines says the U.S. must avoid war with China over Taiwan at all costs. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, who apparently was working in the East during a long time, for a long time, he suggests that it's not a good idea to go to war with China no matter what. And it says fighting China over Taiwan risks an almost certain military defeat. That's his opinion. That's his assessment. America should refuse to be drawn into a no-win war with Beijing. The prevailing mood in Washington among officials and opinion leaders is to fight if China attempts to conquer Taiwan by force. Okay? And the most likely outcome would be a conventional defeat of our forces in which China ultimately succeeds, despite our intervention, at the cost of large numbers of our jets being shot down, ships being sunk, and thousands of our service personnel killed. Okay? But the worst case is a conventional war spirals out of control and escalates into a nuclear exchange. Yeah, what's going to stop a conventional war from turning into a nuclear war? And who are all the parties that are going to participate? Okay? So these are things you got to keep in mind. If there is a world war, will it stop at conventional weapons? Especially if one side is losing, being trashed, they're probably going to start pushing those red buttons. Okay? And it's interesting that he says that the prevailing mood in Washington among officials and opinion leaders is to fight. So we got a lot of hawks there, and they're going to be determining, assuming there is a war, they're going to be determining the fate of all of us. Interesting, huh? Someone else determines your fate. You plan to go on vacation, and these guys are pressing the red buttons on each other. So your plans are a little shot. So yeah, you're going to be learning this word called Taiwan. What is Taiwan? Taiwan is like, imagine California secedes from the Union. Who was it? South Carolina in the Civil War was the first one to secede. Well, here now it's going to be California, for example. Right? So California secedes from the Union. Turns out China comes, or Russia, some big empire there, comes to its defense. It helps California secede from the Union. Well, what would Americans think of that? They wouldn't like that. They say, what do you mean? What's China and Russia got to do here with California? You guys get out of here. This is our problem. And that's more or less the situation with Taiwan. Taiwan is a renegade province. China says it belongs to it. The world recognizes, even the United States recognizes Taiwan as part of China in the United Nations. There is no country called Taiwan in the Olympics, etc. And China says it wants to reincorporate it and be able to do what it has to do with its province. An internal problem. And here you have this treaty where the United States says there's a Taiwan agreement. And here's a little bit on that. Okay, let me put it over here. It says Biden, China agreed to abide by what? Taiwan agreement. What the hell is that? It says President Joe Biden has spoken on the phone to Chinese president. Okay, see? Biden told reporters on Tuesday that both leaders had agreed to keep to the Taiwan agreement. Taiwan agreement? What the hell is that? An apparent reference to Washington's policy of recognizing Beijing rather than Taipei, right, the capital of Taiwan, on the expectation that the future of Taiwan will be determined by peaceful means. Ah. So what if it's not resolved by peaceful means because the governors of the province don't agree with the president of China? Then we have a problem, don't we? Taiwan's defense minister said on Wednesday China will be capable of mounting a full-scale invasion by 2025. What? That's 4 years away. Okay? Adding that relations were at worst level in more than 40 years. So, China might decide to, maybe it loses patience and wants to reconquer, I guess, or however you want to phrase that. They want their province back. And that might create a problem, and that problem's going to be bigger than Vietnam or Afghanistan or any of those places. Okay, that's going to be big if that happens. Okay, I don't know. Got to keep that in the back of your mind. More related to economics, which is my theory about what's going to happen. Remember, war is a consequence of economics. I mean, the United States is not there to defend democracy. Forget about that. That's wording that politicians use. That's just a phrase, a way of saying things, But what's really there is that, it's economics. They have relations with Taiwan, with people in Taiwan. They can go in there and do whatever they want. The Americans, they can go back and forth. Same Taiwan with Japan and so on. And if China takes a hold of that province, a lot of those relations die immediately because the shots are called from Beijing. So this is a problem. And among others, something that's currently in the news is the semiconductors. One of the biggest producers of semiconductors in the world, and I mean manufacturers of semiconductors, is Taiwan Semiconductor. I used to work with these people. And Taiwan Semiconductor manufactures and distributes a lot of the chips, semiconductor chips, not potato chips. And the world right now has a dearth of chips. And if the Chinese take Taiwan away, it's just going to get worse. And in fact, they would be getting a big bonus right there just by getting Taiwan Semiconductor on their side. So there's a lot of stuff there that is beyond just the military capability or democracy or anything like that. There's economics, okay? And so talking about economics, here we have another big news. International Business Times says Biden goes on the offensive against reckless Republicans. And essentially, Biden is upset that as he sees it, the GOP is not playing ball. They don't want to approve the budget that he submitted. And they go back and forth, do a little horse trading. Everybody does that in Congress. And what they're trying to get is that budget approved. But apparently, if it's not approved by mid-month, the United States will default, which has actually never happened. They've always managed to resolve these issues before they reach that point. But, a lot of these people just play politics. They just care about being reelected. And so when someone comes in there and says, look, you got to approve the budget, they say, well, I don't know, if I approve the budget, you're going to look good. And I don't like that because that means I won't be elected next time around. And so, no, I'm going to shoot you down. And it's like nobody cares about the country, whether the country's doing good or bad or whether that helps the country or not. It's just politics, plain dirty politics of the worst kind. Okay? So, yeah, these politicians, they play politics. Okay? And so you got to find out whether that's in the best interest of the world, okay? Because a lot of the world depends on this big empire called the United States. And here's a few people bickering over the budget, well, to some degree, but more they're interested in their own political careers. Okay? That's what's driving those disagreements. Okay, it's along party lines. Okay, and who's right, who's wrong, doesn't matter really. It matters whether they're going to approve the budget, and they probably will. They always fight all the way to the line, to the 24th hour of the day, when it almost expires, and they usually reach an agreement. But it could happen that maybe they don't reach an agreement. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, and this is the problem. Here's my take on this. What's the problem with the economy? Well, the economy is that we don't do hunter gathering anymore. I don't know if you see that little red dot there. That's approximately how much hunter gathering we have in the world today. Okay. Agriculture, well, we have a little more of that, obviously, but it's a balloon that's already been popped a long time ago. The advanced nations have only about 1% of their economies is agriculture, both in terms of labor and GDP. Manufacturing, a little better, anywhere from 10 to 15% in the advanced nations, a little less, quite a bit less in other countries. But what is growing, or what has grown already, is services. Services is the big balloon today. And like I keep saying, the services are all abstractions. They're not productive. The only way you get productive is if you turn those services somehow into stimulating both agriculture and manufacturing, which are the two segments that produce something tangible. Other than that, services doesn't produce anything. It's just waving of hands, and so all we're doing is with services is moving money around so that eventually somehow triggers the production of something tangible in agriculture and manufacturing. And you can see the advanced nations have a big problem because what has grown and is still growing are services at the expense of manufacturing and agriculture. A lot of manufacturers being automated, and so that doesn't make it any better. And you have fewer companies, monopolies, big monopolies handling the whole situation. On the other hand, in service, we've got also a big problem because manual services, such as landscaping, construction, and those sort of things, they're being pushed aside also by internet services. What's growing tremendously is internet services. Everybody who doesn't have a job just goes to the internet and does something, tries to get money. And so internet services are growing, and not only individuals, but big corporations, Amazon and Apple and Facebook and so on, they're all growing, or at least have grown lately, right? And so what we're growing is a segment that is truly not productive. You could call it entertainment, maybe. That's what it is, mostly. And yeah, there's insurance, there's banking, there's other stuff in Bitcoin, but primarily it's these line items that are not productive. They don't produce anything at all. All they do is just produce money, maybe jobs within some of those segments. But what are those jobs producing? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're just changing money around. That's all they're doing. I sing, you send me some money, and I use it to pay the electrician who fixed something in my house, and all we're doing is pushing money around. That's all we're doing, just exchanging hands. Okay, another thing related to extinction, which is, whether population is increasing, related to population, especially the fact that population has now moved from the country to the city, and it is in that transition in every country in the world, where everybody's leaving the farms. The farms are being taken over by big agricultural corporations, and the old farmer, he's coming to the city and living in the city. So people are being displaced from the country to the cities, more or less like the enclosure movement in the 16th century England. They began to corral the so-called what until then had been public lands, and the sheep herders and so on. They had to go to the towns, and they started. And the people who corralled the sheep, those were the ones who sold the wool in the wool trade. That's how that came up. Okay, anyways, here we have, you can have technology, this fellow says, cities and plenty of babies simultaneously. Oh, you can, all that's required is patriarchy. Fellow insists on patriarchy. Services didn't kill the family, feminism did. Love this guy, okay. So let me see if we can play some devil's advocacy here, okay. Here we have wildlife, and analysis by people who handle wildlife said the population suffer catastrophic collapse. And you go in there and you'll find several sites, and I put a couple of them here. And what they say is that wildlife is disappearing. They talk about the sixth mass extinction ongoing even today. Okay, and so the question is, was this due to feminism also? Is that why all these animals are disappearing? And for that they say, well, no, this is encroachment by humans. We're encroaching on their habitats. Okay, but again, are we using different standards in every case? Why would we say that humans stop reproducing because women have become feminists, but in the case of animals, it's because of a different reason altogether? I mean, we can take any animal you want, lions, hyenas, whatever you want, and are we going to say that it's because the females have taken over? Okay, so I don't know. That's one way of looking at it. Let's look at another way here. Okay, and that's the one I showed the other day, and that's that in the 19th century, it was the rich people, the rich countries that had babies, not the poor. We have this notion in our minds that it's got to do with poor people that have babies, and that's absolutely not true. That's the wrong assumption. In the 19th century, it was the rich people who had children, and that stopped in advanced nations again because people moved to the cities. Okay, in the cities you have this new situation where it's like an anthole. Okay, when you have this density, what we call density-dependent birth rates. When you have a lot of density, you have density-dependent birth rates, and that means that you don't produce as many children in a dense population. Partly because of the crowdedness, but then there's also the issue of social customs, culture changes, money is not available. There's many reasons that when people flock to the cities and create these mega cities that we have today, 20 million, 25 million people in a city, they don't produce children. There's no room to have children in an apartment. Africa, you can see, started growing tremendously after 1950 or thereabouts. And today they're still growing, not as fast or at a fast rate as they were in the 1950s, but they're still growing, maybe anywhere from 3 to 6 children per family. But that's dying as well as people in Africa, in different African countries, move to the cities. Okay? Once you move to the cities, children stop coming out. That's the way it is. Okay, fellow says, just addressing my dichotomy there, testosterone versus estrogen, right? Come on now, Bill, that's ludicrous. Those hormones drive differential physiological development in men and women, because I said women can maybe come up to par with men in strength, speed, etc. Okay, doesn't agree. Okay, he says, and even if you made everything else equal, men would still have a significant advantage, simply owing to more robust bodies and more muscle mass. Uh-huh. If we started injecting women with testosterone from early age, they might catch up. Okay, I don't know. Let's find out. Let's find out if that's true. Okay, I'm going to ask him some questions. I'm saying, are there women who are stronger than men? Are there women who are faster than men? And are there women who can beat men up? Is this out of the ordinary, or is this alive today? This notion that there are women who are big women, fast women, good wrestling women, or women who are very well trained at martial arts or whatever, are those things that only men have? Let me see if I'm going out of focus here. Or are those things that are unique to men, strength, speed, etc.? Okay. Another fellow also along the same lines says, to win wars, you must take the brutal step, kill the man, and rape the women. I'm wondering what century this fellow is living in. Maybe he's thinking of Attila the Hun or Genghis Khan or Suleiman the Magnificent, one of those fellows, the Vikings. I don't know. I think this fellow is in the wrong century. Okay, and let me show you something here, because I think it's the same fellow who put in there. It says the average man could easily defeat Ronda Rousey in combat. Okay, and Ronda is that little girl there among all those men. She was at I think Paris or whatever with all these actors and so on. I'm almost sure. In fact, I would be willing to bet a beer on it, right? That she could beat each one of those men individually in a one-to-one duel, okay, inside the ring. And you can say those are average men. I'm sure I can take any fellow from the street. I don't care how big he is. He could be 220 pounds. And she would run circles around and get him by the legs, throw him down, and then, put a leg scissor around his neck. Maybe break every bone in his body and then laugh at him when she comes out of there. To think that he thinks that that Rhonda is just a little girl there, playing footsie. I'm sure that if I put him against Ronda, I think we all know who would win there, okay? Yeah, she's a professional fighter, okay? She's trained to do karate, judo, wrestling. She does that every day. She's been doing that since she was a kid. And you think you're just going to step in the ring and slap her around, silly? Boy, some people really have their feet off the ground. That's what I think, okay? You got to come back to earth, fella. Okay, let me show you something else here. Okay, have you ever seen this? These are women. Okay, and since about 1977, women bodybuilding has taken off. Lots of women entering that field. They're entering what? Because they want to look good? No, they're entering because of money. Again, there are no jobs out there, so they enter the field of entertainment. And part of that entertainment is running for contests, beauty contests on the one hand, muscle contests on the other, and women are entering there. Okay. Now, these are not girls that you may want to date. They're a little grotesque, at least for my taste. But this is reality. This is not photoshopped, okay, by the way, just in case. Okay, these women are not photoshopped. These women exist out there. And you say, well, are they women? They certainly don't look like women, do they? Okay, not the ordinary women we're used to. But this is reality, guys. I mean, 100 years ago, you wouldn't find something like this, okay? Something has changed. And so you got to get used to the fact that women are coming up the ranks in many ways. Among them, in strength, might, wrestling, fast running. I was talking about the record held by this what is it, Griffith Joyner, I think. She's got the record. She ran it quite fast, 10 point something, I think 10.3. I'm sure that she could beat the hell out of a lot of men in running. And so the question is, are you going to say that those women eventually will not catch up with men? Why not? They've caught up quite fast to us in just 40 years. Why can't they continue? And again, if you look at the hyena world, the female hyenas are bigger than the males. They run the show. And a male hyena cannot fight a female, especially the head of the clan. There's no way. The female hyena will beat the crap out of the male. And so, are you going to say, well, he's got testosterone, she's got estrogen, but it looks like it doesn't matter in that world, does it? Okay. And here, let me show you along those lines. Here you have a lion, right? Well, no, that's like the article says, it's not a lion king, it's a lion queen. Okay, that's a female lion that's got a mane, which is usually reserved for male lions. And they found in Botswana a few years ago, 5 of these in a clan, and they all had manes. Okay, and the theory is that they have a little more testosterone than usual. They do behave like females to some degree, but one of them even mounted another female. Okay, so we've got something going on in this world today. Okay, this is not something that existed in the days of the Romans when they brought lions into the Colosseum. This is something new, and this is something new because the population of lions has decreased significantly. They were like 150,000 only 50 years ago. Now there's only 35,000, and so now there's inbreeding. There's fewer. The gene pool is much smaller, and so I'm sure that this has something to do with genetics. Okay, and here you see an analysis by people who studied this. Okay, and here you'll see it says, until now, reports of such maned lionesses have been extremely rare and largely anecdotal. A likely explanation is an increased level of what? Testosterone as these lionesses mature. Well, I don't know about mature. I think it's got to do with not with whether they have matured. It's got to do with the fact that these lionesses are the product of inbreeding. Okay? It says there must be a genetic component in this population underlying the phenomenon. Yeah, I agree. Well, some of the main lionesses were observed mating. None of them became pregnant, suggesting they are infertile. A known consequence of high levels of androgens such as testosterone in females. Yeah, what they're missing is the fact that they're probably infertile because they're the product again of inbreeding. Okay, it never occurred to them that this could be a product of inbreeding. I don't think this is anything to be concerned about, says one of the researchers there. Although the females are apparently infertile, they otherwise appear to be living long, healthy lives. Totally irrelevant to the issue. He hasn't discovered the reason that these animals have manes. And from a conservative perspective, there is nothing to suggest the pattern is increasing or will ever be anything more than a rare local phenomenon. Totally mistaken. Again, these people that have no clue whatsoever studying these animals. Could the masculinized females in fact be a boon to the pride when it comes to competing with other prides? Again, irrelevant questions that these people ask. They don't even know what the issues are or what they should be investigating. They should really figure out why these animals are coming out now with manes. And I'm telling you, it's got to do with genetics, like they say, but they're missing the point. The point is that we have fewer and fewer lions in the world today. And, at some point, it's going to be sister with sister. lion with lion, brother with brother. So, I don't know. We have the wrong people doing research out there. They have no clue whatsoever what's going on around them. And yeah, if we have a problem with genetics, and if we add to that the fact that, for humans, right, we have a problem where there is no genetic diversity among the human race. We're now marrying sisters and brothers today from a genetic standpoint. And on top of that, you have this cultural change where women are going into what? Into boxing and kickboxing and running and sports and entertainment. Put it all together. Is this world going to last another billion years? We're never going to die, humans? I don't know. My intuition says something is different and fatal. Okay, something is nearing the end of the line. Okay, and here you see another example of this: Siamese fruits and Siamese veggies. Even the vegetables and the fruits are coming out with genetic problems. Why? Because we've been inbreeding them for a long time. I mean, grapes. You know how we grow grapes today? Do we put a seed in the ground? Is that the way we do it today? Like in the old days, like Mother Nature used to do it? Absolutely not. What we're doing is we're cutting a branch from another vine and planting it. We're cloning them. We're cloning grapes. We're doing a lot of that with these fruits and veggies. And you can pick out almost any fruit or veggie that is out there that we regularly eat, and you'll find a case of Siamese twins. And you're saying, is this always been the case, or is this something new? Is it that some of these fruits are reaching the end of the line because we are artificially selecting them? Like we don't like watermelons with a lot of seeds, so we select them in such a way that eventually is a seedless watermelon, or its seeds are no good, even though it's got many of these little seeds. They're not any good for planting. Okay, and we see this with lots of fruits and lots of veggies, where they try to get rid of the unwanted part, which is the seed, because you don't like to crunch seed. So if you want to sell it and you want to beat your competitor, well, you raise some fruit or some veggie that does not have seeds. Okay, and we're doing this to the plants. We're killing these plants in our own way. Okay, aside from the fact that they've been around for a long time, and also they lost their genetic diversity. So what you're seeing is not only humans that have lost their genetic diversity, animals which have lost their genetic diversity and growing, females growing manes. You have also animals with two heads. You'll see some cases today, quite a few cases really, of Siamese twins. And now you see veggies and fruits as well. You think this has always happened? Well, I can tell you for sure at least one case that shows at least that it has not always been the case. In the case of peaches, peaches about 2,000, 3,000 years ago were like berries. That's how big they were. And humans artificially selected them. And today you have the peach that is, maybe baseball size, okay, or tennis ball size. And we helped that fruit grow over the years, over the centuries, over the millennia. And now they're bigger. But, in some of my trees, I found that I had, at least one tree had 5 of these Siamese peaches, 5 of them. And that's when I started looking at the fact that a lot of fruits are having, these problems, these genetic problems as I see it. And so, yeah, when they were little berries, I doubt very much there was any Siamese twin there. It's when we grew them, we selected them, we wiped out their overall genetic diversity, and yeah, now we start seeing these problems. But we're not aware of that. Everybody looks at these and says, oh, how interesting, we had a Siamese pair or whatever. I think it's a little more than that, okay? Especially when you see it across the board, veggies and fruits. What you're eating is an unhealthy fruit. It's like saying that, if you had a monster that ate humans, well, what kind of, maybe a cyclops, would you like to eat a healthy human, or would you want to eat a human with 2 heads? Something's wrong with that human. Okay, the fellow says, no way humanity will last forever. Well, that's a great statement, but we got a problem because you haven't told us why you think humanity will last forever. It won't last forever. I mean, why won't it? What's going to kill us? If you take that to some people, the people say, well, we're smart. We can see things in advance. We can foresee events. We have the technology. We have the knowledge. We can address the problem, right? And so humans will live forever. And he says they won't, but we need a reason. We need a theory, a mechanism. What will kill humans? And more important than that, what will kill humans that humans can do nothing about? for which intelligence and technology and the ability to foresee events has no way of addressing. That's the question. Because then you have found what will kill humans. Okay? But to say humans will not live forever, well, it's just a guess. It's a shot in the air. You haven't told us anything. You haven't told us why that's the case. Okay. Continuing here. This comes from the Wikipedia. A fellow says extinction of humans, and he goes out there and just recites essentially, just copied and pasted. Overall probability 19%, molecular nanotechnology, weapons 5%. These are all these reasons that humans might become extinct. Okay, these are percentages. I'm not sure what the percentages have anything to do with extinction. One is a qualitative, the other one is a quantitative assessment. Okay, but it's got all these things. What you won't find in there is food. You won't find economic collapse. Okay, and so the question is, are any of these even in the ballpark? Well, the only one I would give is wars. Okay, but they only gave 4% to wars. Okay, 4%. That's the only probability that a war might come. I think there's a much bigger probability of war, but more important than that is, why will there be a war if there is a war? Well, if there is a war, it's because of economics. It's because of resources, a fight for the resources. That's what it's all about. So it all comes back to economics. Okay, so I don't think you can avoid economics, no matter what. Fellow says, money is not trust. Trust is what makes money work. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like without trust, there is no money. Okay? It's like if you don't trust the other guy, you won't accept money. And trust is very important in the asphalt jungle. Okay? Especially if you know a little bit about the green or the woody jungle. The one that wild animals live in. There, if you trust, that's the end of you. I don't think there's a buffalo or a wildebeest that trusts a lion. I don't think there's a zebra that trusts a hyena, pack of hyenas. There is no trust in the wild. And, the day money disappears, that we have no longer trust in money, you had better not trust any kind of trade, because it's going to be like the wild animals. You're going to be, trading your life. Okay, so yeah, money is trust. Okay, and again, right now we only think of trust in terms of, do I trust that guy? Will he deliver the goods? When you're in the asphalt jungle, okay, and no money, it's going to be a little worse than that. That's when trust becomes a lot more important issue, especially if you got to talk about money. And again, that's why there won't be any money, because there won't be any trust. Okay, so I don't know. A lot of people have to think about these things a little more in depth. Okay. Fellow says, regarding the definition of life, how do we define life? Alive, a natural object that moves against the path of least resistance, primarily gravity. And so the fellow says, is a solar flare alive? Okay. Well, a solar flare is not an object, and the definition says clearly object. So that's elementary, my dear Watson. Okay. Solar flare, what is it? A sudden flash of increased brightness. None of those words represent the physical object. Okay, so yeah, you have to have an object to talk about live or living, alive or living. Okay, so you got to start there. If you're going to criticize the definition, make sure that you have an object to begin with. Otherwise, you're attacking a straw man. Okay, here's a listing of words that maybe this gentleman should come to grips with. In physics, we need these words. We need to recognize them as non-objects. You can't use any of these words as objects. He mentioned there, a solar flare. Yeah, not an object. And again, it's people who introduce ordinary speech into physics. But here are other words that fall along those same lines. Okay. First one is plasma. Plasma is not an object. Okay? Plasma is a process. What process? Ionization of an atom, okay, or several atoms. Electricity is not an object either. Electricity is a process. Under the rope model, torsion of merged electron shells. And there you see it on the far right. Fire is not an object. Okay, so you can't say, oh, fire goes upwards, up the walls. Yeah, it goes against gravity, but fire is not an object. So you can't say that, is fire alive? No, fire is a process. It's a process of combustion. What is combustion? Oxidation of some kind of substance. Okay. Electromagnetic wave, is there such an object as that? Absolutely not. What you're staring at there are vectors. Okay, and vectors are little arrows. They represent magnitude and direction with. And what you're staring at there is the movement of these vertical magnitudes of these magnitudes and directions. So it's very scary because they think that's a physical object simply because they put all these arrows there to represent it, and they put them in motion to make things worse. No, a wave is not a physical object. The wave is the object is the flag. Wave is what it does. Object is the water. Wave is what it does. And in the case here, you would think that what is waving is whatever object is underlying light. So whatever light is, that's what's waving in the best of cases. And what you got to do is identify the object that mediates light. That's how simple it is. Okay? Vortex is not an object. What is a vortex? A tornado. Is a tornado an object? Absolutely not. What threw your house down was air. Okay? The object is called air. You can call it gas, molecules, but never vortex. Vortex is what air does. Okay? So a tornado is what air does, or any vortex, any whirl of that sort. You got to identify the object. That's the point. Okay? You need to find out what object is twirling. Okay, regarding COVID, someone says, oh no, you took the experimental jab. Now you're a guinea pig for science. Maybe I'm a guinea pig. I did it because I plan to do some traveling, hopefully towards the end of the year. And so, you got the holidays coming up. And so I don't want the hassle at the airports. And there's big hassle still today. Hopefully all that dies by next year. Okay. But right now it's still a big issue. You got to get the PCR test if you want to travel. When you leave, when you arrive, and now in fact, a lot of the airlines are probably going to request or demand that people be vaccinated. And so I don't want the hassle. That's what it's all about. Of course, if you're not traveling and maybe you don't even work with people or work at all, then you're not concerned. Okay, but you're in a different situation than people who work with lots of people out there, cashiers or whatever, and they don't want to be exposed to so many people, and they want to take it on the safe side. And they say, I'm going to get a vaccine because I might catch this virus. Whether the virus is there or not is irrelevant. The point is, if you're out there with lots of people, you don't want to take the risk because, in fact, you don't know. You're not a doctor. Even if you were a doctor, you probably don't know if there's a virus or not. All you do is guess like anybody else. Whether you guess left or guess right, it doesn't really matter, because if you're with a lot of people, you want to be on the safe side. And you say, well, I'm not going to even risk it, my health. And other people say, well, I'm not going to get a vaccine because it's government imposed on me. Well, I'm sure just about everybody on planet Earth has been vaccinated at least once against something. When you go to school, especially in the West, in advanced nations, when you go to school, you get vaccinated. Government mandated, you got to have your vaccine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Very few people can escape it, maybe for religious reasons. But in general, just about everybody gets vaccinated against something, And so the question is, that's mandated, that's government, you're vaccinated probably against something out there because you went to school, and now you're going to protest because the government is forcing a vax down your, up your arm, a jab up your arm. Think about that. Why didn't you protest when you went to school? You probably have a vaccine in you, I'm almost sure. Okay, now the fellow, same thing. It is the idiots who get vaxxed that become perpetually sick until their untimely death. I got a vaccine only because of traveling. I don't care either way. For me, it's a non-issue. Okay, that's what it is, non-issue altogether. And here, a final one on vaccines. Here, the fellow says, in 2020, they demonstrated their biotech power by infecting the world with virus outbreak, talking about China. Weak, but enough to destroy a significant part of the Western economy. Aha. Who knows what they have in those laboratories in Wuhan? And now probably a cyber attack against Facebook. We had one the other day, right? Facebook had some kind of problem. And this fellow says it's the Chinese who are doing all this. They're doing the vaccine, they're doing Facebook, they're doing all these nasty things. Of course, you can get a lot of people who will say, well, it's the rich people in the United States who are doing all this. And they created the virus and took it to Wuhan. And again, do we have any evidence of any of this? There's no way you're ever going to get evidence for any of that. Even the governments, they have an interest in saying, oh, it was the other side. It was the other gang that did this. And you go to the other gang, they say, oh, no, it was that gang that did it. And I know for sure. I know that. Take this for a fact, okay? You heard it here first. It was Canada that created this vaccine. Okay? The vax, this COVID thing, they created the whole works. And you might disagree with me. You might think it was the French. You know, you got your opinion, I got mine. Okay, so that's about as good as it gets with COVID and the origin of COVID.